Hi everyone and welcome back to Cassie's Confections. Thank you so much for watching. Today I'm going to show you how I made this book cake. The first thing I did was trim two 9x13 cake layers into the shape and size that I wanted. Next I stacked my layers and filled them with chocolate ganache. Then I trimmed off a little extra cake so it didn't extend out past the cake board. I then added a fair amount of chocolate ganache to the top, spread it evenly, placed wax paper over the top of that, and then a cake board over the top of that, and flipped it upside down and leveled it. I spread the chocolate ganache that squeezed out from underneath up onto the sides of the cake and then used my bench scraper to make sure none of it extended out past the cake board. Next I began spreading the chocolate ganache over the sides of the cake. At this point I realized I wanted one side to bow out just a bit and the other side to kind of arc in just a bit to kind of resemble a real book. So after I did a couple sides of ganache, I went ahead and went in with my knife and began carving. I carved to the side where the pages would open inward just slightly and then used an offset spatula to fill it with chocolate ganache. I also used that small offset spatula to just sort of shape it the way I wanted it to look. For the opposite side of the cake, I wanted it to bow out just a bit to resemble the binding of a big book. So I just sort of built up the chocolate ganache more and more and shaped it with a piece of acetate as I went. This was a little bit of a process, but you just need to be patient and build up the chocolate ganache as needed until you get your desired results. Next, I just went around and filled in the chocolate ganache in any imperfections and made it as perfect as I wanted it. One thing I wanted to note is when you're using a bench scraper to smooth any sort of cake shape that has corners, you want to pull the ganache or buttercream away from the corners. And that applies in both directions. Here you can see the great shape that I ended up with. Next I measured 3 sides around the cake for where I was going to apply my fondant for the pages. Next I rolled out a strip of fondant long enough to cover those 3 sides, and then I trimmed out a strip a little bit taller than the height of the cake. I used water to apply it to the cake. If you have chocolate ganache all over your board, as I did, you'll definitely want to be careful because you don't want to get the chocolate ganache on your fondant. Next, use your favorite tools to smooth out that fondant and then trim off the excess all the way around. I used a clay modeling tool to draw out every single one of those pages. Don't forget to give the corners some attention too. You can really bring the pages to life by using some petal dust. I used a combo of a yellow and a brown, as I wanted it to look sort of old but not completely antique. Next, I rolled out and cut a panel of navy blue fondant to create the book cover. I realized at the last minute I didn't have any Tylose on hand, so I just let the book cover set up for a couple of hours before applying it to the book. I wanted the cover to overhang the book just a little bit, and I didn't want it to be floppy. I applied the cover to the cake using water. felt like I had too much overhang, so I went ahead and used my scissors to cut off the extra. I guess I had a major brain fart here because I'm not really sure why I didn't think I needed to do the bottom side of the cover. So at this point I went ahead and flipped the cake back upside down and added more fondant. You can go ahead and tell me in the comments that there would have been an easier way, and I'm positive you're right. But this is what I ended up with. I smoothed out the seam as much as I could and then flipped it upside down to do the final trimming of the bottom half of the cover. I was able to smooth out that seam even more by kind of pressing in with my knife. So that's how you make a basic book cake, and now here's how I finished decorating mine. I used some embossers to add some detail to the binding and then painted it rose gold. Next, I took an edible image that I had doctored up and trimmed it to fit the size of the cake. I used white food coloring to roughly paint the wording that I wanted to go onto the edible image. The reason I didn't just do it when it was on the cake is because my hands are really hot and resting on the cake would melt the cake. I still planned to go over it once it was on the cake, but at least this would cut down the time that my hands were resting on the cake. I applied the edible image using water, not very gracefully, as you'll see. Then I added my final layer of food coloring paint to the wording. That was it. Obviously, I decorated this cake to my client's specific requests, but you could decorate yours however you want. Thank you so much for watching, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, please give me a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. We'll see you next time.